Jose Trujillo is one of my favorite artists on Instagram. He's located in Tucson, Arizona, and he's been a full-time artist for over 12 years now. We recently spent a Saturday afternoon on a video call discussing various art-related topics. There are timestamps in the description if you want to jump to a specific topic. So what do you want to talk about? Social media, painting?
Any of it or all of it.
Yeah,
I
I
think it's
think all of
awesome.
it.
Yeah.
So is today your day off? You don't paint on Saturdays?
No, I do paint. Just took some time for this meeting, but I try to take Sundays off. I don't always do it. I fluctuate between Sundays and Saturdays.
Yeah, I gotta be careful because I'll work every day if I don't plan a day off. You know what I mean? Like I enjoy painting so much that I'll do it every day or even making videos too. And it's like you start to get burned out because you can't work, 7 days a week.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. I have to be careful myself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an issue I always have. If I do work on the weekend, I usually do like cleaning or order art supplies or, stuff like that. So it's not too intensive. Or I try to prepare for the week ahead. If you don't have everything sort of like lined up for the week, you start to get behind. Like if you don't have all the paints that you need or all the supplies that you need, then you start like you have to go to the store to buy them or order them. And I find it's easier to sort of like plan the week ahead. And then when I go to work on a project, it's all ready to go. So
Yeah, 1,000%. Those are my things I tend to fight with, if I didn't prepare.
yeah, it seems like you do like painting after painting. Like I watch you on Instagram Live and it's like you unwrap up canvas, you put it on the easel, 20 minutes later it's done, and then you unwrap another one. It's like so you must do the same thing. You must have a stack of canvases all set to go. You got your paints already. I mean, you paint like 12 hours a day or something like that, or 10
Yeah,
hours, 12 hours?
yeah. A minimum of 12 hours. Sometimes I go bananas and I'll try to pull an 18-hour day, and my wife is like, no.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
So I mean, is that like 12 hours straight, or do you take a long lunch, or is it pretty much all day long?
No, I mean I'll take a lunch, but it's pretty much 12 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to Corey Huff, and we were talking about the interview that you did with him, and I'm like, "Oh man, that guy works like crazy." And he's like, "Yeah, I was almost afraid to publish it because he doesn't want to encourage people to work like 12-hour days." And it's like, I can't paint that long. That would drive me, I'd start to get like your neck gets stiff and stuff from being in the same position all the time. So,
Right.
do you paint standing up most of the time, or do you switch?
Yeah, I do paint standing up. I used to paint sitting down, sitting, and my back started like just
Yeah,
hurting so much. Then I was like, no, I gotta do something else. So I would switch back and forth, standing and sitting. And
right.
at some point, I was like, I just gotta stand because standing seems the most natural.
Yeah, it's more ergonomic. Some of those recent paintings I did, I do like a watercolor wash, like with acrylics, and I have the panel so it's flat, so you end up like looking down at it, and that strains the back of your neck because you're looking down for a couple hours, and it's like
Yeah,
maybe this isn't the best setup. So
yeah. Standing, looking down. I when I do acrylics or inks, it's if I do it for a couple of hours, it'll start doing the same thing.
yeah,
So I try to stand and put it on a wall, for works on
yeah,
paper, things like that.
maybe I need to modify my style so that it's more ergonomic. That's the thing with watercolor is like you can't have it vertical because it would all just like fall down the paper. So, but I mean, you can have
Yeah,
it at a slant so that you're not looking straight down, you're looking a little bit. Plus, you can also just like use your eyes to look down rather than like tilt your whole head. I mean, these are things you think about as you work on paintings for hours. But
yeah,
yeah, you have a pretty amazing studio. I see it in the background. I mean, that's a lot of space.
yeah. It's like we got lucky here. I have about 4,000 square feet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have this spare bedroom and I have like my basement, but the basement is kind of dingy. It's like it's underground, so it's cooler, which is nice in the summer, but it's not as comfortable as being, above ground. And you got like it looks like you got a skylight up there too, which is cool.
yeah, yeah. If I was trying to get a large space like this because in my mind I used to paint from home, right? We rented this house, and we pretty much took over the entire house as a
Yeah.
studio. And so I was like, no, this is not gonna work. I got to get a space just for art. And and so in my mind, I thought if I if I have different easels or different work tables, where one I'm doing watercolor, another one I'm doing I don't know, acrylics and, whatever, right? And then another one I have oils and like different workstations. And somehow that made sense in my mind, but practicality, it doesn't,
It didn't
not for
work.
me, right? It doesn't work that way. Uh, it sounds good. Like if I could switch because it'll help my mind and whatnot. But I over the years I just come to realize that I have to put lots of energy on a single project for it to really get done. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I was reading earlier today, Robert Genn, he was talking about having multiple paintings going at once because then you could see it with fresh eyes. But I thought about it. I'm like, once I step away from a painting for a couple of days, I don't care about it anymore. It's like, oh, now it's hanging over my head. I got to finish it. So it's kind of like if I'm excited about a painting, I want to just blast right through it, get it done. And then, you're more excited that way. So
Yeah.
I think we both are on the same page on that one. I think other artists can do that where they put it aside for like a week or a month. It's like, I'm done once it's a week. It's like I don't care about it anymore. So
I used to I used to do that some years ago when I was starting to learn how to paint and right out of around high school or out of high school and and yeah, I used to have keep paintings for like 6 months,
yeah,
retouch them, or some paintings even were sitting there for like a couple of years and then get them and retouch them again. And at some point I was like, this is fun, but this is not gonna be like this doesn't work as a career. This is gonna be I'm gonna be the worst starving artist ever if I keep going like this. That's what I thought. I gotta change this thing up.
yeah. In one of your lives, you were talking about your old style, and it would take you like a whole day to do one of those paintings. And you said you had to reinvent your whole style. And I'm like, I could totally relate to that because I did like a sort of realistic painting of a landscape, and it took me 100 hours. I'm doing the math. I'm like, what would I have to charge for this in order to be worth my time? And it's like, it's hard to find a collector to spend 1,000, 2,000, $4,000 on a painting. And it seems like
Yeah,
you sort of took the same idea of like just trying to be more efficient at painting so you could do more per session.
yeah.
And so I was wondering how you arrived at that style. Was it just you just tried different stuff to make it faster or
Yeah, I went through a bit of quite a bit of a learning curve. I used to paint the same way, right? It would take me, I don't know, 30, 40 hours to do a painting. The
right?
fastest painting I would do would take me like 12 hours to do. And I would be like, oh my God, I did it so fast, I was like, I was like, I'm the fastest artist probably around because I would do a painting in
12
12
hours.
hours. Yeah. And so I was like, I was also thinking like, how much do I have to sell this for? And not only how much do I have to sell it, but how often do I have to sell it?
Right.
Right. And so the often part, because a lot of us, I think as artists, we think, okay, well, I'll just charge X amount per square inch, right? The usual. And I was like, but it doesn't scale. Once you go bigger, it doesn't scale anymore. It starts getting
It
super goofy.
yeah, it ramps up like crazy. Like it works good
Yeah.
if it's like 5 by 7, 8 by 10, but when you go like 16 by 20, it's like all of a sudden it's like 3 grand or something. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
uh,
it's super goofy, especially if you're starting out. Like ain't nobody gonna like. I'm sure one or two people out there. There's collectors that will pay it, but not enough. At least in the beginning, not enough to make a career out of it. People are not just throwing $3,000 at us every day or every other day for a painting,
right.
unless you've created a brand or something. But I realized that, and I was like, oh no, I got to do something else. So I took I started experimenting with timers, like those kitchen timers.
Yes, yes. Have you ever seen this book? I pulled this out this morning. 60 Minutes to Better Painting.
No,
He does the same thing. He says get a kitchen timer and he's like
oh
do a 60-minute study, do like a 30-minute study. And it's crazy what he can pull off in like 40 minutes. I'm like,
yeah,
these look like finished paintings. And it's like, so I started like painting like you said with the timer or uh you try to find a different way to like get it down faster without losing too much quality, you know what I mean? So
and I think that's the trick right there, right? That's the Goldilocks approach is you want to go fast, but you don't want to lose quality to the point where people are look at it and say, no, it's not it.
yeah, what's this? Well,
And so I experimented a lot.
sometimes it can
But
look better when you're faster because you don't overwork it, right? It looks more
Right.
confident, like the brushstrokes are more confident. I think that's what I respond to in your paintings is that it's like I asked you that one time, do you layer? And it's like, no, it's like one layer and you're done, and it's pretty impressive that you do it that way. So that's what I responded to. And I also
So
like how you like your brushstrokes are loaded with like multiple colors, so that you get more texture with each brushstroke. And was that something that you just sort of like stumbled upon, or was
I
it
did. It was pretty accidental for me because I've always liked the whole idea of underpainting with sort of abstract underpainting. You know, many artists out there, they're very methodical when they underpaint. They'll do the drawing on the canvas usually, and then they'll do a wash,
right?
you know, kind of like a glaze, and then they'll underpaint the canvas, and it's like all this very methodical thing. And and one of the things that I liked is looking at when I went to museums, looking at unfinished paintings by like the great masters, you know, and I always saw, at least in my eyes, an element of that they would. It's almost like whatever was left over in their brush, they would use that to underpaint the next part of the painting.
All right, yeah, I see.
You know what I mean?
I
And so I was
was,
like,
yeah, go ahead.
no, it's just that. I mean, I was like, I think they're using muddy colors, what we consider muddy colors, or we
Right.
consider a lot of grays or blue grays to underpaint the next part of the painting.
Never noticed that in like museum pieces, but I remember looking at Lucian Freud. I don't know if you've ever seen him. He's a figure painter,
Yeah,
and there was a book, and it had like an unfinished painting, and it was like the parts that he had painted were like finished, and then the rest of it was like blank canvas. I'm like, he does it kind of like you do, like in one layer. So I'm like, that's pretty cool. So I think most artists come around like after you do so many paintings, you realize like you're wasting time doing certain things, and can you get rid of that step to make it faster? I switch back and forth. I went through a phase where I wouldn't draw at all before I painted. I would just go in with the brush, and that did help because you get more confident in like fixing things with your brush rather than trying to get the proportions right with the drawing first. But lately I've been using like pencil drawings to get like the proportions accurate. And then when I paint, I feel like I'm more free. Like I do washes of color and it goes outside the lines and stuff like that. But I don't know. I got so many different styles too. That's the issue I have too, is I get interested in certain things and I take off on a tangent.
rails. Yeah, no, I go back and forth too, and a lot of the stuff I've noticed that as you're always as an artist, right? You're always kind of growing. You expand and contract. Like you try new things, and then you're like, okay, no, I'm going back to what I know, and
Right.
then you try new things, and then you go back. Um, one of the things that I noticed is that as I'm doing that, I also realize that I'm overthinking a lot. In that
Yeah.
in that quest of learning and doing better, I overthink a lot. I go around a lot in my mind and in my brushstrokes too. I think my paintings could be simpler, but in my mind, I'm like, I gotta do it better, you know?
Yeah, I'm always tempted to fix stuff, but I've been like lately I've been like leave some imperfections in there, and especially with like AI art and all that other stuff. I want it to look handmade, right? And then people are like they think that painting should look like a photograph, and I disagree. Like I mean, it's so easy to take a photograph nowadays. I think a painting should stand out from photography. You know what I mean? Like I want to see the brush strokes to some degree, but I also like to have it somewhat accurate too. Like I don't like paintings that are like the proportions look way off or something. And sometimes that could be a style, but sometimes you look at a painting and it's like, can this person draw or is it a style? And it's I'd rather have it look like that's intentional if it's like that distorted. So I don't know. There's a balance there, I guess.
uh, I like that. I like to see artists that can draw, but choose to a minimalist approach, you
Right.
know. But if you give them time, they'll also do a a realistic portrait or whatever. They can draw, you know, if you give them time. But if you don't, if they have a thing going on where kind of like a Keith Haring or something, right? They have a thing going on where they're very immediate when they're drawing or creating artwork. Like you said, that's part of the style and that's cool. But I personally like to see the trace that okay, this person can draw because to me
Right.
it's just more it's not trying to be a purist or anything like that, but it just feels like it feels intentional rather than I don't know, just throwing something on the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah, some artists actually use like projectors, and I could see why you would do that because it speeds the process up. Like if it's a business, you want to get to the end result as quick as possible, and you know you can draw, but it just takes that much longer. But for me, I enjoy that process of like figuring out why this doesn't look right, like the proportions. Like some part of my brain gets sort of tickled by like, figuring out how the pieces fit together. And if I traced it, I would be so bored. Like that would seem like busy work. And it's like the other thing too about like realism, I think you need to simplify. Like if you're painting a landscape, you can't paint every single leaf and all that. You got to like simplify it into like major shapes. And I think that's where like a lot of people, and I did this myself, I'm talking from experience where I would paint every leaf and it takes forever. But then when you start painting like looser, it starts to look more stylized, it looks more simple, and I think it's more effective that way. I don't know if you have any thoughts on like simplify. I mean, you seem to simplify quite a bit too.
Yeah, I mean, my I fancy myself as as a person who's always looking to simplify, but
Yeah.
I'm always like I'm looking for that balance. I don't know who said it. Make simplify, but don't make it simpler. You know.
That's good.
You know?
Yeah, you
So
get if you pare it down too much, it's like what am I looking at? It's like minimalism from the 70s looks like, it's like a single color on a canvas. It's kind of easy to sort of walk past it, you know what I mean? It's not engaging enough. Some of it, I mean, some of it's really elegant, but for me, I need a little bit more in a painting. I like to see.
especially in market, no, I think like one thing is to do artwork for the I don't know, when we think of like artists like you mentioned right now from the 70s, like expressionist artists or modernist artists. uh One thing is to like comes to mind Mark Rothko, you know.
Right.
If, and it's like, oh wow. But if I try to do that today and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna open an Etsy shop and do that, uh I feel like it's very challenging to get that into the market unless you have a whole system of there's 1,000 different color combinations, or you know what I mean. like like those things were great in the museum, but when you bring them to the present market, they just don't quite make sense.
Yeah, and I think those paintings almost have to be large, like really large, like the size of a wall, because it sort of engulfs your senses. You see a whole wall of color. Whereas if you try to do mini Mark Rothko's like this big, it's like it's not going to have that same like impact it does when it's like 8 feet tall. So yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And I think a lot of people sort of brush off abstract art. Like I did some abstract painting for, years in college, and sometimes people like love it, but a lot of times you get that comment like, "Oh, a kid could do this," but they don't understand like how hard it is to make an abstract painting work. I think realism is actually easier because you got a blueprint from reality. You're drawing a tree or a barn or something, and that's the starting point. When you start with like an abstract painting, you got a blank canvas, and you're like, okay, where's the subject coming from? Like, so I don't know. Did you ever paint abstractly at all, or?
Yeah. I've done some. I still from time to time I'll play around with it. I think it's very difficult abstract work. I compare it sort of like if you're doing if you're like you're walking in the woods, you know, if you're doing realism, you get to hang, you get to hold onto a string or a rope as you're walking through the
Right,
woods,
right.
blindfolded. But abstraction, you're blindfolded and there's no string, and it's still dark out there, and you have to get to the next. You know, it feels that way. It's always like a leap of faith. Every brushstroke, everything.
Yeah, yeah. There's no like end goal. But what worked for me when I actually sort of figured this out was I would do abstract paintings from photographs. So you take a photograph and maybe crop down a section so you can't tell what it is, but it's still interesting, and that would be like the starting point. And I got
Nice.
that from Richard Diebenkorn. I don't know if you ever seen any of his paintings. He would work from like aerial photographs of like the patchwork of like farmland and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. Like he's not just making this up. He's basing it on a composition from a photograph of fields or something. So, or from like the California landscape, and his Ocean Park series was like based on the neighborhood he lived in. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can kind of see that in there.
Nice.
But to come up with to cook it up out of nothing is so hard. I could never do that.
I applaud artists who can really come up with nothing, you know, and turn it into something in abstract, because it gets repetitive too. Abstract can get very repetitive if
Yes.
you know, if you don't understand the compositional aspects of abstract work. I see a lot of artists out there that like just splashing paint, and I think that's kind of why they have a hard time too, whether it's marketing it or getting it out there. It lacks substance. It's very repetitive. It turns into the same painting just with different colors.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think, there's like I mentioned DIEBENKORN. I felt like he works well with color. He's got good composition, like in his ocean park paintings. But there's abstract artists that don't really pay attention to like aesthetics. Like they just think that you can splash something on a canvas and that's good. But it's kind of like, well, the colors don't work together. And it's like there's no composition to this. Like you said, it's like they look at it and they think a kid could do it, but they never studied like composition. I think a lot of the best abstractionists, they started out as like realists. So they have that under their belt. So when they take that into they can take that into the abstract genre, and it works. I think it's
Yeah,
hard to like just jump into being abstract, like an abstract painter, and have good colors and good composition, like you said.
yeah.
So
The best, in my opinion, the best abstract artists were at some point were realists or hyper realist painters at some point in their life before they just it's just the progression. They, like you said, they take uh, real core understanding of color theory, uh, composition, visual weight, right? Everything, right? Like they know exactly where to put that red. It just feels
right.
right. It feels like they balance everything so well.
Yeah, it's also the like the proportion of like the intense color. Like you got a little bit of intense color, and the rest of the painting is like neutrals and grays.
Yeah,
And I think that's where beginners go wrong, is it's like every color in there is like straight from the tube and super like neon. It's like it's like you could barely need like
bright
sunglasses
thing.
there. So that's it's one thing you learn as you progress, is like the proportion of like intense color to neutrals and stuff like that. And I think
Yeah,
beginners don't really think about that too much. The
yeah,
other thing I run into is like I do all those color mixing videos. So when I do a painting, people are like, well, it doesn't match the subject, but it's like, yeah, that's the whole point. Is like I'm not a camera. I'm trying to exaggerate it and get some sort of emotion into the painting or some sort of feeling. And I feel like a lot of photographs fall flat because it's like if you take a picture of a landscape, it's the colors are always the same. I feel like it's better to like invent colors schemes and simplify, like we talked about before. I don't know if do you ever like paint outdoors, or do you just always work from photographs?
I used to paint outdoors. Today I just work from photographs or just ideas that pop in my mind or something I saw online, and I just try to work with different reference material at the same time. Sometimes it's five different reference pictures in order to make one painting.
Right.
Just kind of mix and match, and I've done it so much now that I'm starting to understand what the whole thing is about for me. But in the beginning, it was a headache, you know, like trying to put together so many reference material, so much to reference material, with always the quintessential fear of the artist. I don't want to copy something, you know. It's always like it needs to be original. So how do I do
Right.
this, right? And so yeah, that's always been a challenge. And but the more you do it, the more you do you know, the more you do you start doing something more, I guess, original. But I did used to paint outdoors. I did plein air painting. um I've always loved photography for that reason, that you can, and I admire photography, but not necessarily for painting, just as an art on its own. But I think the best photographers focus on composition rather than, you know,
Right.
and in painting, um a lot of us focus on color, and we focus on like changing of subject matter. It was something that I play around with a lot. But I also think that in painting, composition is also probably the core thing.
Yeah, it is. I'm always like looking at my photos and cropping them down to see if I can make them stronger and stuff like that. I think I asked you in a live about, do you work from photographs? And I was wondering, do you use like images from Google search, or do you use your own photographs? I mean, because you paint a wide variety of subjects, and it's like it'd be hard to photograph for me to
Yeah.
photograph like a bear, and like it's like
I use stock images, a lot of stock images, whether it's iStock or Google search or
right, pixels.
again. yeah, the trick is to what a lot of artists do, and I think that the anxiety of creating work like that from stock or from Google Images is it doesn't look too much like the picture, and I think that
Right.
what they're focusing on is color, you know, and 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 I think the trick again is to not just change the color because all you're doing is just changing the color of an image,
Right.
but if you have a bear, can you make him with angry eyes? Can you raise a paw or or do something, move him around a little bit, do something,
So if
like
you were to show like the reference image and then the finished painting, they would look pretty much completely different. Is that what
yeah,
you're?
yeah,
Yeah.
it would be completely a whole other night and day.
Yeah, because I was
Uh,
gonna ask if you ever had any issues with like copyright, because I know like Warhol had an issue with I think it was this painting of like flowers and it was from like a Life magazine or Time magazine and he got sued, but I mean he took like a I think it was like a silkscreen print of the photo. So you're pretty much taking it, you're interpreting it and adding to it. And so do you like spend a session and just compile a bunch of images that you're gonna paint for that day so you have it all set, or do you like sort of like
yeah.
split it up?
So I guess the more I do it, the more it flows now. But I did have like hundreds of file folders, right?
Right.
And one would say uh January, another one, every month. And then within each of those folders, well, the main folder would be 2021, right? 2022.
Hmm.
And then in that folder, it would be January, all the 12 months. And then in each one of those, it would be the 30 days. And in each of one of the 30 days, right? But I am like this. They're very ADHD, I guess. I don't know. In each of those 30 days, it would be up to 60 different images. Although I'm only
Wow,
looking to paint 20 or 30 pictures a day. I have
that's
all these
crazy.
ideas.
30
I have all
pictures a
these
day.
ideas. Like sometimes it's just I'm sitting here and I like the way the coffee mug looks or the coffee or whatever, and take a picture and then imagine it with flowers. And then I saw flowers somewhere else, and I saw yellow flowers. Can I paint them pink? Can I move them around? And can I use the lighting or the composition that I just took a photo from my phone right here, and just combining a lot, combining. I think that's the trick for me. It's to mix and match and combine.
That's cool. Yeah, it's kind of like you're building up a buffer of images so that when you get to that day, you open up that folder and it's like, that's what I'm painting today, pretty much. So you don't have to think about it. That's a good
Yeah,
idea. I mean, I've been trying to do that, but I don't have that many photos compiled. And I'm limiting myself to like what I took pictures of myself. I'm not going on like, getting stock photos or anything like that. So,
and as I'm working on them too, the one thing is to think about it, and another thing is when you're working on it. And so as I'm working on it, I realize 90% of those pictures don't work.
yeah, that's the thing is you get like 100, you go out and take 100 photographs, maybe 5 or 10 are pretty good, and then when you print them out and paint them, it's like, oh, maybe only 6 are good. So
And so what I end up doing is I'll go to the references of 2019 and then
yeah,
bring some of those references. So I'm it's just it's a mess.
I just did that. I have a backup hard drive of an old computer, and I found my photos from there, and I'm like, let's see if I can mine some images out of here. And I got a pictures of strawberries I want to paint. I got that all set up, and I found like some boat pictures. And I was thinking too, like with like watercolor, I like to do like a line and wash where you do ink drawing, and then you just put watercolor over the top. And I feel like you can get away with using images that aren't maybe top notch because you interpret more with watercolor. Like if you simplify it into like a line drawing and then have some really interesting washes on top of it. It's like an interpretation of the subject rather than like if you were to do like an oil painting and match everything exactly, that would be kind of boring. But when you do
Yeah,
watercolor, you have to like eliminate certain things. And I think you can make a okay image into like a rather good one. I don't
yeah,
know if you think the same thing or
yeah. I agree. Yeah.
yeah.
One of the things that I also like to do with when it comes to organizing my day is realizing that again that no matter how much reference or how many things I have, it all kind of comes down to my mood.
Yeah.
It's like if I feel like a
Like the image
winner,
you want to paint or
yeah, if I just feel like that day, if I feel like I'm calm, I'm a little zen, I don't need references. I don't need anything, you know.
Really?
But if I
You
feel a
make it
little
up?
bit, yeah,
That's hard to do.
yeah. If I feel like I don't know, like I'm over organizing, then no matter how many references, how many things I have, it's never enough, you know. And so I try to
Yeah.
find that balance in there. Have some references, but don't over organize because that's not it either.
A lot of times like I do a still life and I'll photograph it. So then you have like total control over it. And but I still feel like I like lately I'll totally change the colors just to make it more interesting. But I still have that foundation of like the light pattern that's on, like I was talking about a bowl of strawberries. It's hard to make up like how to model that in your head, because there's
Right.
a shadow and there's like highlights. So I think that's why I lean on photographs rather than trying to make it up in my head, because it's like I want it to have like some sort of realism to it. But I think my favorite style is kind of like a mix between abstraction and realism, where it looks like the thing, but if you look at the brushstrokes, they're like kind of almost abstract. If you look at them up close, like there's more texture in it and stuff. So that's kind of what I'm going for now. But
I like that. I like that. Also, another thing that I do is I try to use whatever there is. Like I don't try to look for references or ideas in any one place, you know. So I guess my trick is I'll look everywhere. I'll use anything. I'll screen grab something that I think it's interesting that I could turn into a painting. I'll look at a magazine. I had for years and years I just had magazines, piles, hundreds of magazines, and just rip them off and like, oh, this looks interesting. How can I interpret this into a painting? But I use so many different things. I found that that's the best way to do it. I'll even use AI. I'll use
I was,
Midjourney.
I was just going to
You
ask you
know,
that if you use it.
yeah, I was using Dolly for a while, but if if you overuse it's just redundant because it all looks the same.
Yeah, I was experimenting with this week and I had it do an image of like sailboats on a lake with like dramatic clouds in the style of a watercolor painting. And it was kind of interesting, but it looked cooked up, like it didn't really
Yeah,
jive with reality too much. And it didn't have the look of a watercolor. Like I could kind of see where it almost got it, but I think a real watercolor painting is hard to like cook up in a AI program. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
the way that the paint flows, it's hard to mimic that through software. I mean, someday they'll probably get that right, but I don't think it's something they're going to focus on. Like, I don't think too many people are looking for watercolor AI art, but being a painter, I'm like, let's see what this thing can do. I might experiment with it. I know like digital art in the beginning was kind of like frowned upon, but if you look at an artist like Hockney, he took his iPad and he was doing like iPad paintings with it. And I'm like, that's someone who's open-minded to see like it's just another tool. Let's see what we can do with it. Whereas a lot of people I see on Instagram, a lot of people are hating on it. I think it's artists who feel kind of like threatened by it, which I don't blame them because if you're an illustrator and all of a sudden you can just type something into a prompt and have have an image ready to go, and I have to hire an illustrator, I could see why that's a cause for concern if you're an illustrator. So I don't know how that's going to play out in the long run. But as a painter, it's another tool. Like it's another way to cook up like a reference material.
right.
I'm not sure what
I
the go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I love seeing that with illustrators. I've I've hired illustrators before on like Fiverr
Hmm.
to cook me up something that on can I say
We're like
that here?
short order cooks here with like reference material.
Yeah. To cook me up an idea. For example, sometimes I'll have projects where people are like, they give me photographs and then they're like, I just had one recently for an organization. They wanted this three women painted right in this big massive canvas, and and it just didn't feel right in my style of painting oils, and so I knew I had to do it with acrylics or I had to do it wash or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay. And I remember listening that KEHINDE Wiley. I don't know if you're familiar with his work.
No.
Uh, he would hire digital painters to work up the compositions of his paintings and the colors and everything. He does this massive paintings. An African American artist who does this massive paintings, uh, and they kind of look like Baroque or Renaissance style. And and so I read, I didn't hear, I read that he was doing that, and I was like, oh, that's smart. That's hours and hours of work.
Right.
Can I get a professional to help me with this? And so I got these photos, and I got someone from Fiverr, an illustrator, charged me like $20. And I was like, can you make this look like a watercolor splash type of drip, you know, with splash background and whatnot? And then I started working from that image. I was like, oh, this looks very interesting. I can paint on this.
Yeah, and then you probably alter it even further, right? So it's not like a
Yeah,
copy of what that person did.
it's a point of it's like a starting point, you know. But now it's not so abstract. It's not all over the place. There's a starting point now.
Yeah, there's a foundation to build on. That's a
Yeah,
good idea. It's kind of like people don't understand that like being a painter, it is a business. Like, and you have to think about how to scale. Like, and that's one example of that is you hired somebody to come up with a composition for you, so you don't have to do that, and you paid them $20, which that's pretty
right.
cheap for, having a composition made for you. And then
Or simply someone who can layer images on digitally.
right.
I don't have any idea how to do that. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I can, but I don't like it as much as like analog stuff because I already spent enough time at a computer making videos, right? So I don't want to spend, another 3 hours, compositing images in Photoshop or whatever. So yeah, but back to
Yeah.
like it is a business, and I was wondering too, like, do you have people helping you ship paintings? Because you make so many paintings. I mean, it'd be hard to like paint all those and then ship them and list them on eBay and all that stuff. So do you have helpers?
Yeah, yeah. Right now it's three of us. It's my wife helps me with she pulls the paintings from the racks back here,
Yeah.
and then I have someone who packages them. Uh, their name's Marcel, and so Marcel's our packaging person. Yeah, well, all three of us we get to a point where each one of us is doing our job, kind of thing. And then at the end of the night, we take them to the post office or whatever, just drop them off.
Do you use priority mail or do you use UPS or FedEx? Do you have a
Yeah,
preference?
we use FedEx and Priority.
Yeah, I use mostly priority. I posted a video the other day about the cursed painting. I don't know if you saw that. It was a banana painting. And I tried shipping that first class to save some money. And it took like 18 days to get there. And I thought it was I thought it was going to get lost. So I'm like, I'm going back to priority because it's like I think
Priority is
that
the best.
yeah, it's a little bit more, but it's insured, and I think they do make sure it gets there on time that way. So I'm sticking to that. And I don't think people they don't seem to mind spending $10 to like, to have something shipped.
Especially with original art.
Right,
I
yeah,
think
print I wouldn't care.
yeah, I think I've talked to a few artists and who have asked me about shipping and whatnot, and I'm like you want to charge shipping, the best possible shipping you can do, whether it's priority or if you're gonna ship something bigger, maybe I use FedEx for something bigger, bigger boxes, but because it's original work, you want to make sure that it gets there safely and on time.
Yeah, larger paintings, an artist on Instagram, she told me UPS, they'll pack it and ship it. And it costs a lot, but for like a large commission, I did it and it was so awesome just to go in there, say, here you go. And then you walk out and they pack it, they ship it, and they know how
Nice.
to do it. They have like mirror boxes or like, boxes made for that and they pad it. So I'm like, from now on, any large painting is going to go through UPS like that. And then the smaller ones are easy, like 8x10s, even 9x12s. That's easy to do. But yeah, there's a whole
Nice.
aspect of like selling art, and people question your prices. Like I'll put like 160 on an 8x10, and people are, they think it's like super expensive, but it's like, there's so much that goes into like just getting reference material. We've been talking about like reference material for, a good portion of this. And then you got to like have space to paint in, and you have to photograph it, you have to list it, and you have to correspond with the people buying it, and you have to, you know, pack it and ship it and do social media to, so that people know who you are. I mean, it's a whole business. And I think people, they ask you like how long it takes you to do that painting and they divide the price by those amount of hours. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. That's just the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, there's a lot more to it. So,
When I was starting out, I figured out if I could sell. I was trying to make $300 a day, right? This
right.
was
Yeah.
about 12 years ago. I was like, I need to make $300 a day, because somehow in my mind that equated to 100 grand a year, and so I was like, that's the number I need to make, and so So what I was doing was selling $650 paintings,
Right. Yeah.
and and that's how I stumbled on it. I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this. At some point, they started selling, uh, two $200 paintings, or $150 paintings or whatever. But I never lost that model till this day. I still do that model.
Three hundred a day is your goal. Are we still now? Like,
No. It's multiplied now,
yeah.
but it's still the same. It's still the same pattern. It's still can I paint 30 paintings and get 100 or $150 from each one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or can I paint 25 paintings? Get $150, an average of $150 per painting, but also can I do two commissions? You know, and kind of add it up. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
model of doing multiple things that are just around painting, not like can I get a little bit of money from a YouTube video, or a teaching a class, which is nothing wrong. A lot of artists have that model, but my whole model is around what I can do, uh, originals. Can I
Yeah.
pull in the cash through originals?
Yeah. I started doing social media just to try and sell paintings, and then the social media blew up and it sort of like took over. So it's like I feel like right now I'm trying to get more back into like doing more paintings because that's what my original passion is. But yeah, you can easily get sucked into doing YouTube and I do like branding deals and things like that. And I mean it's really exciting. It's fun, but
Yeah,
I like painting too. So it's hard to juggle like multiple projects, you know.
yeah.
So
Especially if something is uh giving you something is rewarding you, monetarily. I have this friend in Australia who was like, I want to sell paintings. I love painting, but he was dead set on selling paintings. But his income was coming in from teaching, you know.
teaching
And to
art
me it
or
was
just
very yeah, to me it was very clear. I was like, I just push more
into
into
teaching.
teaching. That's what's giving.
Yeah, that's what happened to me was like my color mixing videos blew up and I'm like, this is rare. I got to lean into this and see where it goes, right? Because it's like
Yeah,
things don't trend forever. And it did open up a bunch of doors. And I don't think you would know who I am if you didn't see my videos. Like I saw your videos years ago and they kept on popping up now and then. But um, would we talk on Zoom right now if I didn't have videos that blow up on, Instagram or whatever? Probably not, because you wouldn't know who I am. So, like you said, an opportunity pops up, you should pursue it, you
yeah.
know. And
and and lean on it hard. I've seen artists on Instagram miss that point. A lot of artists, um, they they get momentum on Instagram, and then they're like, oh, I want to go do art shows. I want to go do this. I want to go do that. And then they start chasing. It happens to me all the time too. I
shiny
guess I
object
did the
syndrome,
same
right?
one. Yeah. And then they're chasing all over the place, and it's like, oh, like stick to the thing.
You got to focus.
Stick to, yeah, focus. And many times it's boring, you know
Yeah, it's funny
this
you bring that
stuff.
up because I
Right.
I was thinking this week all the progress is in the boring, tedious stuff. That's it's like the magic is in the grind of where I
Yeah,
added videos for hours and end and it gets tedious, but it's like that's where the magic happens. If I chase something new because it's exciting, well now I'm starting from scratch and I got to build that up from nothing. So it's better to like just accept the fact that some things are going to be less exciting than what you anticipated. So yeah.
that's what happens to me. This is something that we often talk about. We're looking as a business, right? As a studio space, we're looking for money, right?
Right.
And we always remind ourselves the money's in the boring, it's in
It's-
the boring stuff.
you got to do taxes, right? I mean, that's coming up. It's January, right? So, boy, I hate doing that. And it's like, but it's also exciting to see like how much money you made and, and how can you optimize and cut some expenses and things like that too. So, I think we both have like it's more than a hobby. Like there's an entrepreneur in both of us. Like, did you ever work for somebody else as an employee or were you always self-employed?
No, I did. I was employed. My last job was about 12 years ago.
Hmm.
uh, and I hated it. I hated. I hated being told what to do. I
Yeah.
hated everything about it.
What
And
what was it in? Like, what was the field?
I was selling it was a company that sold water-based lacquer, kind of like Minwax type of stuff
All right.
for 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 Home Depots and Lowe's and stores like that. And so I went from being a lacquer technician. We were testing the different types of lacquers and the VOCs in it and all of that.
All right. Yeah.
From doing that to selling it, because I found more opportunity if I became a one of their sales people. But I hated every moment of it. You know, I did it because you have to work, but it's one of those things. I hated my 9 to 5, so I became an entrepreneur, and now I work 24/7.
Yeah, but you love it, so it doesn't really feel like work, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
how I am.
no, yeah.
Yeah, I see that's the thing is like I'm good technically too. Like I'm creative, but I also have a technical side. And but I lack that thing that that would allow me to get promoted or to really excel in an organization. I find it's really hard to be creative in like a corporate environment for some reason. I don't know why that is. I think creativity is like it's really subtle and it's hard to bring that out when people are watching you work all the time, like, walking by your cubicle to see if you're working. And it's like it's not really an environment that promotes creativity. I don't know if you had any creative jobs other than what you do
No,
now.
no. Most of my jobs were I guess it would be creative, but it was most of it was just labor.
Yeah.
I did construction and things like that, and yeah, and so everything's around that.
When you work for yourself, if you get a more efficient way to make a painting, you reap the rewards rather than the company. You know what I mean? So I think there's a much bigger incentive to like get more creative or to optimize stuff when you work for yourself rather than, when you work for a company, they'll just take your efforts and that's it. You don't get anything in return really, except more work. So
Yeah, and now it's stuff like I was checking out Chat GPT,
yeah, I
things
was
like
using
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Or you're using it?
Yeah, I made a couple of videos about it. I asked it how to mix red, how to mix purple, what color is a mirror, and it was pretty interesting. I posted those recently. You can check them out. What do you use it for?
No, no, I still haven't played with it. I've been hearing about it and listening to other people's experiences. Uh, but with that kind of stuff, I'm like, wow, I was thinking about authors and people that not authors like I'm gonna spill my guts into this book, but more like monetary, like people that write children's books or whatnot. I guess authors, people that just pump out books, put them on Amazon or put them on Etsy and whatnot.
Oh
Things
yeah.
like that. I'm like, wow. I don't know if it would work the same way. I guess I'm comparing it to Mid Journey when Mid Journey came out, or AI type of painting or art. A lot of people were talking about how that was going to take over painting, and I'm like, it's not, because
Right.
they look pretty generic. But the chat GPT seems like it seems very creative though. I don't know if people who write see it that way.
Well, there's people trying to use it to come up with a script for a whole YouTube video. And then you could also use AI to generate images and stuff too for the image part of it. But I feel like I was talking about it with somebody else and I said that like with painting, there's a story behind the person that made it. Like I was watching Pawn Stars and Madonna had a day planner and someone brought it in and they estimated it was worth between ten and $12,000 just for a day planner from Madonna from the 1980s. And it's like that's because there's a story behind her, right? And that's the same with like a painting. Like you look at famous artists like Van Gogh or whoever, there's a story behind them, and you look at the painting, you could tell they physically touched it. Whereas AI art, I mean, you can make a print from it, but it's kind of like a poster. Are you going to spend thousands of dollars on a poster that's, mass produced? Maybe I don't. I wouldn't, but
Yeah, there's no real what do they call it, provenance, right? There's no story. There's nothing to back it up. Where people say, I had this. What is, unless, I don't know, unless a very famous person said, I had it in my hard drive. It's like, okay.
yeah. I mean, it's like you're an artist now, and you're just typing in like prompts into a computer. I mean, when you look at a painting, I mean, there's a physicality to it that's not in a print, right? I mean, it's like pigments that were mined from the ground or smeared all over this canvas. Whereas AI art is, it's digital, and where's the original? I mean, it's a digital file that could be shared for free. So I don't know if people are going to like collect that and frame it and put it in their homes. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we'll find out as we go along here, but
Yeah, I think AI is just not there with a painting with a digital images. They all look like the same illustrator. You know, it looks like it comes from the same hand, the same illustrator.
yeah, you can say in the style of like Van Gogh or something, but I don't know how accurate that would be. I mean, maybe in
Yeah,
the future it'll be more accurate. Like people follow me on Instagram and it's like you get a sense that they feel like they know me from watching my videos, right?
right.
Whereas AI art, who's the artist? You know what I mean? Like is there somebody inside that machine with a paintbrush?
Yeah,
So
and then the questions of is it how ethical is it, right? That it's just taking actual pieces, actual information.
yeah,
So it's not like it's reinterpreting something necessarily. It's taking actual information.
that's
So I don't
interesting. Like, will there be copyright infringement if the algorithm sort of like takes too much from one thing that it found on the internet and incorporates it into the final piece? So it's kind of interesting.
yeah.
I think we're fine though, as far like fine artists. So I
I
hope.
do think so too. People love that. I get the same thing. I get the same feeling, and the comments. People are like, I've been watching your videos. I'm waiting for you to go live. It's a small handful of people. It's a small group of people, but they're. I remember hearing this from Seth Godin. He said, "Will they miss you if you don't show up?" It doesn't matter the number of people. It could be 5 people, but they're waiting for you to show up, and that you can always grow that depending on how long you want to play the game. But I think that's ultimately that's what matters. You know, you're doing
Yeah,
something, showing up for someone
I
other than
find
yourself.
I find that I have like a lot of followers on Instagram and like TikTok, but I think most of them are more of a general audience. Like if you look at Bob Ross, most of the people that watched him, they're not painters, right? So when you go to sell something like a painting, there's a very small percentage of those people on social media that are actually interested in buying your paintings. And I think a lot of people too, like you get on Instagram as a painter and the majority of people that follow you are other painters. So you're trying to sell something and it's mostly other artists looking at your work. So how do you attract people that are interested in buying artwork to your social media account so that you could try to like sell to them? And it's always the hard part. So and the other thing I can't figure out either is like I saw paintings, small 8x10s for anywhere between 100 and 160. But then there's other artists that sell 8x10s for like 500, $800. And I'm like, what's the difference here between what we're doing? Like, how do you do that? And you seem to take the quantity approach, right? If you can get 100, like you said, if you could paint something quickly and get it, you know, 30 of them done in a
Yeah.
day, then you've met your target. But
But also the reason I take the quantity approach is because eBay sort of allows for that to happen because of the auctions,
right,
you know, because people are like, I could win this for
20
whatever,
bucks.
right? Yeah, I can win this for $20. I'm gonna see if I can do it, and so that's what creates the momentum. Um, but um, but I always say, for example, I just painted a couple of paintings and larger ones. One of them is 25,000, the other one's 50,000, and the reason I price them that way is because if I'm gonna sit if I'm gonna sit on them, I, I'm gonna price them right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like different levels, right? You got
Yeah,
paintings that appeal to like a mass audience that can afford it. And then if, for a collector that has a large home and they want to have
right,
something in their living room that's really nice, then, well, they got to,
right.
you know, pay for it.
And so that's why I see also the artists who are like, I'm not gonna let this one go for $1,200, like a 12 by 12 or something, or 500 or 1,200, somewhere around there, right? I'm not gonna let it go for that for anything less than that. Um, and and I think that they're right too because they're not moving it fast. You know, those paintings are not moving fast. So if they're not gonna move fast, if you're waiting for the right customer, be it 1 week or within 1 week or 1 month, I too would price it at that point, at that price point, and that's how I price them too on Etsy or on Cherish. The paintings are no less than $400 or $500, the 8x10s, because I know they're gonna go sit in a shelf, you know, and so, but like you said, like different levels, like the same size painting, if I put it on eBay, I'm gonna start at $1 because I know it's gonna sell regardless.
Do you think I'd have better luck on eBay? Because I sell mostly through Daily Paintworks, and I know they don't have like I'll have an auction, and it's like they don't have that many people bidding on it, right? Where I think eBay has a much larger user base. So do you think that would
I,
be
I think
better?
it's
Or
definitely worth a try for you because of the amount of audience you have, the large audience. I've seen quite a bit of TikTokers or other influencers in different and on YouTube where they have so much audience and the price point is so low that everybody, right, is gonna want to go and bid on it.
yeah,
I've seen some TikTok artists sell a small painting without being painters for $10,000, $14,000 because of the
really?
audience, because of the type of audience you have is no different than what they had. And so I think that would be awesome to try, and
So
maybe do it once a week or once a month and see.
is that through an auction that it got up to that much money, or did they start it like did they just
Yeah,
list it for 10,000?
no, just through auction.
Someone suggested I should charge more for my 8x10s. I got a bigger following, and I raised my prices a little bit, and I sold like nothing for like a couple months, right? So I'm like, okay, this is the wrong strategy right now. So
Yeah.
I tried an experiment where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start this auction at $5, right? And if only one person bids on it, then you just sold it for $5. But it does work because it's like in their mind, I think that it's an opportunity where they could buy it for a very cheap price, and I have to abide by that, right? If only one person bids on it, I got to sell it for $5. But someone else sees it and they like, I want it too. So, like you said, you get the momentum there where people bid against each other, and
Wait, I mean, I get excited for you. I'm just getting excited for you just talking about it right
that's cool.
now
That's cool.
because because of you have so much audience that I would be like, how would I do it if I was in your shoes, right? And I'm just throwing stuff on the wall here. But if I was in your shoes, how would I do it using the auction method? I would do the painting. I would go through the same process you do, which is record it and do the videos and all of that. Um, and make post of the painting and then say I'm gonna do this painting drop, right? I'm gonna drop this painting on eBay such and such date at such and such time, and then just do content on that, on the fact that you're gonna drop it with on all the platforms where you're at, and start the painting at $1 on auction
I have to say,
and just test it out. What do you got? What you got to lose?
I've had it where you're on the last day of the auction and it's still at $5 and there's like sweat dripping down your head. You're like, oh no. But it does go
Oh,
up.
you got it already like that?
Yeah, but what I'll do is I'll
Oh,
post it
okay.
on like I'll put a post on like Instagram or Facebook, and it's like last day of the auction, and then people are like, oh yeah, and then they jump in on it. Or maybe someone was like waiting because they all have like their strategy, like I'm gonna wait
Yeah,
until the last day so I don't like drive it up too soon, right? They want to sneak it in and be the last person. So I think some people are following it and they wait for that last minute or whatever. So but yeah,
yeah.
but it's kind of like, well, what, like you said, what do you have to lose? I'm making money from other things. It's kind of like trying to experiment. It's working. I've sold all the last like maybe 6 paintings I posted using this method. Not all of them have been like the price that I want, but I figure if I keep doing it, it should go up. If I get more people interested, let's see what happens.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm getting all excited. I love that method, and I love seeing the influencers take a painting, just any painting they did, a little watercolor, and because of the amount of followers they have, people just go bananas, bidding on it, and it's like, wow, how do they do that? And then I go to their pages, they have 2 million followers or something, and I'm like, oh, that could be part of it too. I don't know.
It's hard. I feel like social media is up and down. Like I feel like my TikTok has died like 6 times already, and I brought it back 6 times. So it's like I don't know what the algorithm does, but it's like you
TikTok
get
is kind of volatile, huh?
yeah 20 million views, and then the next thing you know, it's like 2,000 views. I'm like, well, okay, I'm getting whiplash from like the up and down of this thing, but whatever. I'll take it while I can. I kind of want to transfer into doing more long form content like YouTube because I think that's more evergreen. Where I have videos from like years ago that are still making money, right? Whereas TikTok is like, or Instagram too, 2 days and the thing is old and it never sees any more views. So
Right.
I think I'm trying to do more YouTube stuff. It's hard.
The YouTube stuff I really like because my way of doing it is like I think it's the worst way of doing it. But I didn't edit any videos. I just shoot and just upload, and I uploaded over 2,000 videos, like just
On
one
YouTube?
after another. On YouTube. I haven't uploaded in a while. I just been playing with shorts, but I still have people that find me from like 5 years ago and say, "Oh, I just saw your video and I went and I bid on this painting. I'm glad I won it." And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a very evergreen, platform. People keep
It is. It
showing
is.
up.
Sometimes a video that like sort of bombed in the beginning, like 6 months later, it starts to get traction for some reason. And I'm like, that's so different than like social media videos. Because those, I feel like that's the thing too, is like none of those platforms pay like a full income unless you're at the very top. Like I know the shorts bonus on YouTube can go up as high as 10 grand in a month, but I know very few people that actually reach that level. And it's also hard to control going viral on like YouTube shorts. Like I've only had maybe a handful go viral on there, whereas TikTok I had a lot more go viral. But yeah, selling paintings is like something I want to focus more on this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to take it for granted here many times because I as an artist, I'm always chasing the shiny thing.
Yeah.
And so I have to stop myself, like, no, 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 Jose. I slap my hand on the wrist, my hand, and I'm like, no NFTs right now, Jose. Focus.
Yeah, there's always, do you get those ads like someone trying to show you how to like sell paintings for, thousands of dollars, or I'll show you how to make a killing from selling prints. And it's like every month, it's like you said, you got to control yourself. Like, no, I can't take a course because
Yeah.
I'm already on this path.
Yeah,
So
because everything's like it's starting from scratch, and then what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another person, or it
that's so
doesn't work
true.
the same, right?
People ask me like,
Actually,
how do you go
oh, go
viral?
ahead.
And I'm like, well, if I knew that, every single video I make would go viral, right?
Right, right.
So there, I don't know. I feel like it's a lot like painting. The way to get better at painting is like give yourself permission to make a lot of crap. Like you got to make a lot of paintings
Yeah,
in order to get that experience. You can't like think about it in your head and try and get the perfect strategy before you begin. You just have to like work through all the garbage. And little by little, you pick up certain techniques and you build on that. And that's how it is with like social media is like, I tried all kinds of stuff that didn't work. I still try stuff. Like I think maybe that's my half my problem on social media is like I have like a wide variety of like formats that I do. Like I do color matching, I do like painting videos. I color match from memory, I do outdoor color matching videos. I mean, there's like a whole slew of stuff that I do. I do those illusion videos, and each one has like an audience. And it's kind of like every time I jump from one to the other, I'm kind of like losing the one audience that,
right. Yeah, I definitely feel that when it comes to painting too, I'll auction something on eBay that will go for like 20-30 bucks, and then something else right next to it 2 minutes after that auction ends will go for $900. And it's like, well, how can I repeat that? How can I repeat the $900 and I
Yeah,
can't?
yeah. What is it? Like, what is it
Yeah,
about that painting?
yeah. It's like and so over the years I just learned. I still hope that I can figure it out, and that's a problem. Because I haven't really come to peace that I don't know what makes it work. I mean, I work in a way that I'm like, I'm gonna make the best paintings I can, but I'm not going for viral. I'm not going for the one that people are gonna go bananas for because I don't know how to do that. And so I just, like you said, I just give myself permission to do work. And lots of the work I don't agree with. Lots of the work I think it's pretty bad, you know.
Do you ever throw out a painting? Like if it goes
I,
wrong or
only when I'm upset,
yeah.
you know. It's very rare. And it's not the painting, it's me. I'm upset about something and I'm like,
Yeah.
ah. That's the thing that many times, not many times, always the painting that goes for a lot more, whether it's $500 or $1,000 or more at auction, um, I never thought of it as special. I never looked at it and say, "Oh, that's the one that's gonna go." That's the painting that's
Right.
gonna catch fire.
Yeah,
And
I
so
think
I'm like,
that's go ahead.
no, no. I was just thinking, like, it's just doing the work. That's all.
Yeah, if you do enough paintings, one of them will make a lot of money, right? And
Right.
then do you notice patterns in like certain subjects sell better than others or certain colors? Some
No, it's the same thing. What I've noticed is that there is no one path. I'm all over the place. But if I'm all over the place, like a piano, right? Hitting those highs, those lows. But if I try to focus and say, oh, I'm gonna make them all different, then I fall into the trap all over again.
yeah, I mean,
Does
maybe
that
it's
make sense?
better just follow what you enjoy, right? I mean, if you're trying to like if you're constantly focused on what's going to make the most money, maybe the art won't be as good, as if you just followed what you found interesting.
If I try to control it, if I say, oh, the reason why this one went for more, this is very obvious. It's because the subject matter is this, or the colors are that, or the size is this. I'm going to focus on that, you know. And if I, whatever I find that seems to work, I have to leave it alone and kind of let it organically happen. Because if I focus on it, I start messing things up really bad.
I did a still life painting of a pile of books. I like books. And I thought, who's going to buy this, right? And I did like maybe three paintings of book. I sold all of them. It's because I enjoyed it myself. Maybe that came through in the painting. Whereas if you try to like formulate what's going to be the best-selling subject, then maybe it comes across as being a little bit shallow or superficial. The feeling maybe isn't there. I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. I don't know.
Or you also put yourself pressure, and therefore maybe the work flows. What happens to me is I create less work, and so when I try to become formulaic, I create a lot less work, and so my productivity goes down. And so
Yeah.
when my productivity goes down, I get into all kinds of problems.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is like we're talking about working for a company. When you work for yourself, you can see the correlation between the effort you put in and how much money is coming in. But when you work a day job, there's no connection there because your check is the same every week.
Right.
That's what I like about being self-employed is like you can capitalize on your strengths and, if you put in more effort, you can make more money.
Yeah.
But if that's all you focus on, like we've been talking about, I think it sort of hurts you as an artist in some ways.
Right. Yeah. You find that balance. Like for me, it's I know I have to be productive, but if I just focus on that and I stress about it, then it hurts everything else. And if I the opposite also happens. If I'm just too relaxed and I'm like, oh, I'll just do what I feel like it today, but I
Take a
don't have
nap.
it in my mind I have to be productive, everything falls apart as well. So it's like you can't have that and you can't have this. You gotta balance it.
Yeah, I saw one of your lives where you said something like, when you're self-employed, you feel like you can bend time. Like, I'm gonna take a long lunch, I'll just make up for it later. And it's like that never works, right? I mean, it's true, you have total freedom, but that's great, but it's a little bit dangerous because you can take a 2-hour lunch if you want to. But the other side of that is a lot of times that's where my best ideas come, is like when I'm,
Right.
not working and like taking a walk out in the woods or something, or staring out the window,
Yeah.
I'll have an idea. So I don't know. It's hard to balance it.
I try to look at it as be productive without being too rigid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's how I
agree.
find it. Like be productive without being too rigid. The moment you're too rigid, but again, if you're too loose and not productive, so I try to put productivity first. Be productive, just don't be too rigid. Give yourself a chance to have a 2-hour lunch if you need to.
Yeah, I like that book. It's called Eat That Frog, and it's all about that, where he says, do the most difficult thing first thing in the morning, right? A
Yeah.
lot of people, you want to, like, a lot of people start off with like the trivial stuff, like answering emails or whatever. He's saying start with the hardest project first, and that way you feel like you have a win right away. And I've been doing that, and it does seem to like set the tone for the day where you're not procrastinating and watching Instagram reels and stuff instead of doing work. So,
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
and then if something comes up too, then you feel like, well, at least I got that big project done in the morning. And if you have to do something else in the afternoon, that's like an emergency comes up, then it's like, okay, it didn't totally go sideways. You got something done that day. So
Yeah, that tends to yeah, for me, I think because I have a certain quota that I placed on myself, right? A daily quota. Um, I I put certain pressures, and I have to like remove the pressures, right? Like my day is like, how can I remove the pressures? Because I put myself this quota every day that I have to meet this, and it requires time, and it requires so many hours of painting. And if that doesn't happen, I'm like, I panic, you know?
You know, that's what I'm thinking about is like you have tons of images. That's all intellectual property, right? I mean, if you tried selling prints of your work so you could scale it, so maybe you could scale back how much work you have to actually produce, or
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about doing that many times, but then again, I'm like, I probably would have to. Um, it feels like I would have to start something like a new gig, you know,
yeah, it
like
sounds
taking
simple, right? All you have to do is sell some prints, and then you look into like what's involved in like just setting up a shop. It's like, okay, this is an all-day thing, just setting up a shop, and you have to accept credit card payments and figure out how I'm going to ship these things. And because I tried
photograph
selling,
them,
yeah,
everything.
yeah, and do test prints, and it's like, wow, this is a full-time job in itself.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
I find everything like a full time job. You know, when like Instagram strategy, like when people say, oh, you know, you should do this and this and this for Instagram so that you can get more followers. I'm like, that's a full time job.
Yeah, yeah, I'm living proof of that. Like just trying to produce. I used to do a video every day, and now I'm cutting it back to five because I just want to work Monday through Friday for most of the time. And making a video every day is hard. Like I'll batch them. Like I'll do maybe if I'm lucky, I can do a whole week's worth in a day, right? Day and a half with the editing and all that stuff. But then you still have to like post them, right? And I post on more than one platform. And that in itself is like a big part of your job, right? Just posting to social media. And if you stop doing that, it kind of like kills the momentum. So you really have to limit like how many things you're gonna chase. You know, like if I start selling prints, I'd have to find a way to like make that easier, like do print on demand where someone else fulfills the orders and ships them and
Right.
handles the complaints and all that stuff. So
But that's what I've done. It's helped me like licensing. Someone's like, hey, you produce so many paintings. Can I do business with you? I have like they take care of everything. They take care of the
right.
sales. They take care. They photograph the work. They do everything. I don't have to do anything. And so they sell it, and then they give me a cut. You know, 10, 14, 20% sometimes, depending on the size of the piece. And I like those gigs because it's something I can totally give to someone else.
Right. Yeah, it's a way to scale it, right? Like
Yeah,
it's money that comes in for work that you already did. So
right.
so you're currently doing a bunch of deals like that now, or
Yeah, yeah. I I have a couple of deals like that. I have some work also on IKEA, and
oh
so
really?
they it's a watercolor, and so what they do is they print them out, they make them, whatever they have to do, sell them in all their IKEAs, and then at the end of the year they send the check, right?
Oh, that's cool. It's like a bonus.
Yeah, yeah, like bonus. And I'm like, see, these are the stuff that I'd like to have more, but then I can't chase them either, right? I kind of gotta uh, get them as the opportunity arises, because if you start chasing them, then you stop being productive in the thing that's already paying you. So
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's some of the best things that I pursued came to me. Like I didn't ask them if they'd be interested. It's like somehow they find me on social media and I get
yeah,
this random email, and a lot of times I'm not even sure if it's a real email. Like is this actually from this company? Like you kind of got to figure that out too. But
yeah, that is the best stuff for me too. It's just people reaching out and saying, hey, I'd like to do something. Um, and I always know if it's a good gig, they're not asking me to work because I already did the work. What they
right.
want to do is they want to milk my intellectual property.
Yeah, you got to be careful too because some of the contracts are a little bit sneaky sometimes.
Yeah.
You encounter that where it's kind of like they want all the rights. It's, can you sign that away? I don't know.
I pass it to my lawyer first, the contracts. And if I find the contract to be like if I find the deal to be good, you know, like based on my limited understanding, then I pass it out to my lawyer. The lawyer just reviews it and tells me.
Yeah, at some point I'd like to get a lawyer because I hate reading these contracts, like all that
Yeah,
legalese. It's so convoluted and like a lot of times I'll come back to them, I'm like, what are you actually saying here? Does this mean
yeah,
and I don't have a lawyer. I mean, but most of them are pretty good. Like sometimes it'll just be through an email with like regular language, like produce this amount of videos. But other times you'll get like a 10-page contract, and I'm like, what is all this? Like, I thought this was a simple deal, but these companies are, really big, and they have their own legal team that's their job to look out for them. So that's what they're doing. But
Yeah.
so
And I got lucky also with I got referred to an intellectual property lawyer. So
that's
because
cool.
not all lawyers are the same, right? So this guy knows his stuff. I got pretty lucky that way.
Do you pay every time you consult with them, or is it like a retainer or something? How does that work?
No, it's just every time I consult.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's worth it though, because if you sign the wrong deal, then it's gonna be a lot of pain, right?
it's usually the same stuff. They either want to keep it longer, or they want to keep the contract longer. They want to be like, let's do it for 10 years, And it's like, no, because I don't know if it's gonna work or not. Why don't we do it for 1 or 2 years? And
Yeah,
then
then reassess. Yeah, that
and
makes
then
sense.
reassess, and then we can stretch the time. Or they want to. Some of them want to keep more rights than they oughta.
Yeah, that's what bugs me. It's like I want to retain the rights to my work. It's
Yeah,
usually just like usage rights. Like you have the rights to post it on your social media or to print it or whatever, but I actually own the image itself. Like you
yeah,
can't go and resell it and stuff like that. So
yeah. And I think when it comes to intellectual property, I don't even know if you can. I guess you can sell that right, but for what I understand, you own it up to, I think, 75 years after you die.
yeah.
Your family still, you can leave it
Yeah,
to your family.
copyright, yeah.
Yeah, and but some people, I guess, they try to outsmart, especially with the NFT thing. I'm always curious. I don't know if you get those emails or those DMs where people are like, I want to buy your NFTs for $1,000 a piece. All those scams. I wonder how many artists do it, and they just kind of lose the right of their artwork.
Yeah, I never got one about NFTs. I usually get the ones like, do you need help verifying your account? And I'm like, they're not really pitching themselves well. Like
Right?
they're putting the work on me. Like send me, if you're interested, send me a message. Like just tell me what it is in the email because I don't have time to like go back and forth.
Yeah, I always find it funny, the people that want to collaborate with me, want to do business, and then they ask me to do all the work, you
Right,
know,
yeah. That's what I'm saying.
and
Yeah.
then share with them, but we go 50-50 somehow. And I'm like, oh, get out of here! I already did the work. Look,
Yeah,
you see this painting? I already did the work.
they pitch it as like they have the most amazing idea. Send me an email if you're interested.
Yeah,
You already lost because I don't want to get into a back and forth about what this is.
yeah,
So
that's funny.
I'm looking at like, are those like drying racks in the background for your oils?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All
Oh yeah.
the wooden racks. We have five of those back there. Five of the wooden ones. Those are all the options drawing.
Yeah. How does that? I mean, if you paint something today, do you wait to post it because it takes, maybe a week for it to get dry enough to ship, depending how thick it is?
No, I post it the same day. Usually the same night. If I paint it, I'll post it in the nighttime, and the painting takes about 2 weeks to dry. Right now, it takes a little longer because it's cold.
Right.
But normally it takes about 2 weeks to dry. But the auction runs for 10 days, and
Oh,
then
right.
there's 3 or 4 days of process for shipping. Plus, when you ship it, it's on the mail it's in the box for like another 3 days. And so we kind of found a way of doing it so that people can get them right away.
I want to thank Jose for taking time out of his day to talk to me. If you haven't already done so, check out his social media accounts. I link to them in the description. I hope you enjoyed listening to our discussion about art. Thanks for watching.